Miss Hayward.
Colonel Lennox. Forgive me. The other day I spoke rashly.
You're honest. It was refreshing. But the Derby young woman spoke with such candour.
On the way to work, she stumbled upon Colonel Lennox. And I know most of us already watched season 2, but I'm trying to do these reviews like a first-time viewer. So, like, Colonel Lennox, he seemed to be like a nice guy. He approached her. Remember the last episode? She abruptly left the room, left the conversation with him and the Parker family. And, I mean, part of it was disrespectful, but the other part, they knew something was going on with Charlotte herself. But it's nice that he was still interested in her and that he approached her and said hi to her.
Thank you, Colonel, but you'll have to excuse me.
You have an appointment?
I have a job as a governess. Today will be my first day.
And I wish you every success. No, I'd venture you succeed in whatever you put your mind to, Miss Hayward.
Colonel Lennox seemed to be that type of man that doesn't impose any control over women. He is not against Charlotte having a job. Women were expected to get married at a young age back in those days. And if you are employed as a single woman like Charlotte is right now, being a governess, that wasn't normal back in those days. Society will look at that as shame toward her and her family, reputation. But Colonel Lennox recognized her independent spirit, her boldness, her bravery, and I think he admired that at the same time.
All the agent could tell us is that Sydney was in Antigua on your behalf.
And yet he didn't think to tell me he was going. Or for what purpose?
Well, he didn't tell any of us.
Eliza doesn't know. I thought if she knew, she would have told the family, but no one knows why Sydney went to Antigua. Now Georgiana's name is mentioned in this investigation, and because she knows now, I'm pretty sure she starts to think like, okay, like why he was there on my behalf. Like, was he doing something good or was he doing something bad? Georgiana has no idea, and of course, like, she wished she knew because her name is now involved in this mystery that are yet to be unfolded.
What can this mean, Arthur?
I'm certain it's of no cause for concern. Sydney will have had your best interests at heart, just as I do.
She still skeptical a little bit because from what I pick up in the first 2 episodes of season 2, it sounds like her and Sydney were still not on the best terms before he died. So whatever Sydney was doing in Antigua, it was kind of like the last performance of a play, and he was taking the last final bow, and, you know, did something good for Georgiana that maybe will change her future in a good way. It's like one of the last wishes that he accomplished before he died, even though he didn't plan to die.
You're thinking Edward will be there?
I can't help feeling, what with his reappearance and Dr. Fuchs's prognosis, that God has taken against me.
What I want to talk about in this scene, though, Esther, she's like analyzing her life from a spiritual perspective, and I can totally relate to that. I think a lot of people can relate to that during this time, like, you know, when something bad happened to you, like it's karma, like the guy hate me, like why these bad things keep happening to me. That was Esther trying to understand and analyze and try to, you know, find that reason why these things are happening in her life. Like, she was happily married to Lord Babbington. They were on that way of becoming parents, and their baby daughter died.
Miss Hayward, you're late. We were expecting you at 9. Mr. Colburn has asked me to tell you will receive your monies at the end of the month, although few governesses have lasted that long.
It wasn't Charlotte's fault. No one answered the front door, so Charlotte tried to go around the house, through the back door, and she finally met Mrs. Whitley again. This will be an interesting first day of work for her.
The household is making wagers as to whether you'll last the week. But Irish shilling says you will. So for my sake...
Be assured, Mrs. Wheatley, your money is safe. Very little daunts me when my mind is made up. When exactly did their last governess...
Miss Hayward, they haven't scared you away yet?
The household making wagers bets on how long Charlotte would stay. That's an interesting household. So that tells you that they went through a lot of governors in the past, and all of them failed. And now they have this new one, Charlotte. Hopefully she had enough patience and grace for these two girls.
Miss Hayward has only just arrived, Mr. Colborne.
Then I shall introduce you to your charges. Brace yourself.
Very nice of Mr. Heybourne to introduce the two his to Charlotte. Formality, he didn't have to. I'm glad he wasn't mad that Charlotte was a bit late to her first day of her job. I think they have low expectation of Charlotte. Well, except for Mrs. Whitley, but I think overall they have low expectation of Charlotte staying longer than the past governess. We'll see how that goes. Charlotte has that confident smile before she walks up the stairs, and Mrs. Whitley like, yeah, good luck.
Leonora? Girls, you have met Miss Hayward.
Do you see how Mr. Heybourne looked back just to make sure that Charlotte didn't lose her path and that she was right behind him? I thought that was a bit thoughtful. Leonora got hot, and you see that she put away her hat inside her desk. That's pretty cool. Back in those days, like the desk could be open like that.
She is to be your new governess. Allow me to reacquaint you, my daughter Leonora and my niece Augusta.
Pleased to see you both again.
I trust you will show Miss Hayward more courtesy than you afforded her predecessor.
Mr. Heybourne is an uncle and a father at the same time, so that's a lot of responsibilities, a lot of efforts to be consistent with both Augusta and Leonora. So far, it seems that they don't have the greatest relationship. I don't sense that tight, close-knit, loving relationship, that parent-child relationship. So these two, they went through a lot, he went through a lot, and they're struggling to have that closeness in the family. And they really need that new governess. And thankfully, Charlotte came, and she's willing to give this opportunity a shot. Like, she's willing to try to be the governess, and we'll see how that goes. Mr. Heybourne was, again, very nice of him to formally introduce the children to Miss Hayward and vice versa. It shows that he taking this very seriously. Like, they really need a governess.
Augusta, what was your last lesson?
Embroidery.
Actually, I thought
Your
perhaps...
books will have to wait, Miss Hayward, until you have taught them how to behave like young ladies.
Reading is hardly unladylike.
And Mr. Heybourne is not having it. He did decline the idea of books in the nicest way possible. But Charlotte, she's very persistent. She's like, there's nothing wrong with reading. It seems to be female feminist enough in a way that, you know, when you read a book, you don't really move around a lot. You just sit down, stay still, and open a book.
As you can see, Leonora is in dire need of a feminine hand, while Augusta lacks manners, civility, or any of the qualities that would make her remotely marriageable. Good luck.
These two have their own personality. Leonora likes to be tomboy. She loves adventure. Augusta, she seemed a bit more ladylike, but she does her own thing. You know, she likes to have her own fun, and she coming to that age where, you know, she need to realize, like, this is serious. You're going to be introduced to society. You'll be married off. Like, this is the real world, the real adult world, and she coming her to that age. And I can understand that from Mr. Heybourne viewpoint, but at the same time, Charlotte, like, these two girls need knowledge, they need education. No matter if they get married or not, at least they have something that they can hold on to, grasp, and that is knowledge, education. And I think that would be a bonus point, right? If they do get married, like, if you get married to someone, you want to have those qualities, not only a great personality, but a good education, a good job. Well, it's different back in your day, but you have those build up, that strong background, and that you're not only known for, being a woman and having kids for your husband, but you are very wise and knowledgeable, and that you can understand the world more than just, getting married.
Society is not as kind or as welcoming as one would hope, Georgiana. As you know only too well. And your fortune means you're vulnerable. A good marriage will offer you protection, acceptance.
That's tough, because I was thinking of Lady Denna, but she was married before her husband died, so she had like more freedom than Georgiana to be single, independent, and have the fortune all to herself. Georgiana is different. She, at a young age, she had that bright future ahead of her, and when Mary said a good marriage, I'm like, that's what she's trying to do. It's not like she, not trying at all. Like, she tried to put some efforts in. I mean, she went on many dates with different men. A good marriage, that's come with a lot of trust and a lot of respect, and have a lot of common interest. A good marriage has so many qualities to look for to have a good marriage. So Georgiana, like, why you guys giving me the pressure? Like, I know what I want, and I know what's best for me, and you guys, need to stop controlling me and my future.
Ladies!
Mr. Lockhart.
Why such a solemn demeanour on this fine day, Miss Lamb?
I was in a positively joyous mood, Mr. Lockhart, till I saw you.
Keep an eye on Mr. Lockhart and Mary. This will play well way down near the very end of this episode. Mr. Lockhart is single, right? Georgiana is single. Even though she hates him, I think there's still some interest in her that she had for him, but she's just not giving in easily. She's playing one of those games hard to get. And Mr. Lockhart is trying very hard to get her attention and to hang out with her, if that can happen.
And I shall leave you to it, for fear of spoiling your mood any further.
Mary could have picked up on, Mr. Lockhart, hey, he's single, why don't you, give him a try? But she doesn't seem to be interested in Mr. Lockhart being with Georgiana.
Oh, it's you.
Oh, a pleasure to see you too, Miss Haywood.
What is your business, sir?
On behalf of Colonel Lennox, I have the honour of inviting the Parker household to a mess dinner. And the Colonel has expressly requested the honour of Miss Charlotte Haywood's company.
The two lovely people. When I was season 2, I feel like these two were the best thing to happen in season 2. Something about them drew me in, and we will talk more about them as we go on. But Allison was expecting a different guy, if you know. But Captain Fraser showed up at the door instead. I love his response. He's like, "Oh, okay, great. You're not happy to see me." I love his little sense of humor. He had this personality that's very intriguing, and we'll talk more about him, how he behaved toward Allison.
I'm sure she will graciously accept.
Oh, and Captain Carter sends his regards and regrets he is unable to call in person.
Captain Carter? Is he the soldier from the beach? Young, handsome?
He is young, and it's not for me to say if he is handsome.
So the guy that checked on Allison after Allison and Georgiana got into a minor accident with the Harris at the end of the last episode, Captain Harder. So now Allison knows his name, and that's gonna get her butterflies feeling still up again. But really funny though, the way he mentioned Captain Harder to her as he walked away. He really didn't want to mention his name, and I think it was so obvious that Captain Fraser liked Allison since the very beginning, since they first met. And now, you know, as Captain Fraser himself, he probably thinking like, oh man, I might be in competition with Captain Harder. Like, he's not only, you know, one of the fellow army men on the same side, on the same team, but they are close enough as colleagues, as friends. So this can be a troubling love triangle forming right here.
And send him my very best regards in return.
Allison wasn't shy to let him know that she has interest in his friend, not him. I feel bad for Fraser, but at the same time, I loved his sense of humor. He's like, I can't tell you if he is handsome. That's something that you have to find out yourself and decide on your own. The look on his face at the very end, he's just like, what did I get myself into? But I think we as the fans already know from the very beginning that, especially after this scene, like, oh boy, another love triangle, season 2.
Miss Hayward?
Yes, Miss Markham?
It is Miss Hayward, isn't it?
Yes.
Then you are not married?
No.
Nor have you ever been?
No.
Right. Augusta, I think she's coming to the age of 18. Correct me if I'm wrong. So she knows about love, I guess, and relationship. She is coming to that age of knowledge in that area in life. When she started to question Charlotte about Charlotte's love life, you know that she is in for some trouble making for Charlotte on her first day at work.
Then how is it that you are to ready me for a life which you yourself have quite grandly failed in? That is like having a riding instructor who has never sat in a saddle.
Or a pirate that's never gutted a man.
Augusta has no idea what she is saying to Charlotte, and like she has no idea how this conversation is impacting Charlotte and how it can be hurting Charlotte. There's a very vulnerable topic to talk about because she did fall in love with Sydney. She loved him and she lost him not only through their breakup, but she also lost him through his death. And Augusta doesn't know that just yet. But wow, what a tormenting moment to be in on your first day at work as a governess.
See what I have made, just for Miss Hayward. I do hope I have spelt spinster right. You see, it is not a word I am particularly familiar with, nor am ever likely to be. I do believe it is time for luncheon. Come along, Leo.
What a brat. Not sorry to say that, but she's really a brat in the early stages of Charlotte's job as a governess. You know, like Mr. Coburn said, like, there need to be some discipline, and Charlotte doesn't really believe in that physical discipline method. We'll see how she put up with Augusta. Augusta knows what that word means, spinster, and it reminded me of what Lady Denham said to Charlotte about Miss Hankins and how she used Miss Hankins as an example of what happened when you don't get married. And Charlotte, like, you're so mean talking about her behind her back. But Charlotte doesn't really hear what Lady Denham tells her about, you know, love in general. Charlotte's gonna do what she wants to do, what she thinks is best for herself.
The governess takes hers in the kitchen, of course, alone. But then again, I suppose you are used to that. Poor dear Miss Hayward.
I thought it was sad when she said that to Charlotte. It's like bullying her because, you know, governors tend to be like lower class than, you know, the big house that they work in. But Charlotte's a humble woman. She had been now 2 summers, right? This is the second summer in Sanditon for her, and she stayed at the Parker family, and they like a higher class, they like a middle class family, and they have more money, more assets than her family does, and she stay humble, and she very grateful, thankful that she knows this family, and she doesn't take advantage of them and their lifestyle in Sanditon. Augusta doesn't know that. Augusta doesn't know how much Charlotte went through in her own life, especially with Sydney, and then living in Sanditon. Like, she never thought that she would move to Sanditon for the summer and, be in this richer, higher class lifestyle with the Parker family.
You're not going to let her get away with that?
I don't want to punish her, Mrs. Wheatley. I want to understand her.
Is it so hard to understand? She's 18 years old and not long orphaned.
I think what Mr. Whitley trying to tell Charlotte in the scene is that Augusta is at that age where she knows right and wrong, but on the other hand, Charlotte trying to understand Augusta on a deeper level, and I just realized that Augusta really had no one to talk to where she can be open and easily share what she's been thinking, what she's going through. She doesn't have her mom. Her aunt died too, Mr. Heybourne's wife. So she really doesn't have that older female that she can go to for advice. She does have Mr. Whitley, but they don't seem to be that close. So Charlotte can be that person that Augusta can go up to and ask for advice, being a lady, getting married possibly in the near future and so forth. We'll see if that happens, but it's really tough on the first day of work. Just like feeling the battlefield with Augusta and Leonora.
And Leonora lost her mother too.
That was many years ago now. We don't dwell on it.
Also, Leonora's mom, that's a touchy subject to talk about in this household. Charlotte trying to find answers about, what happened to Mr. Heybourne's wife, thanks to the Parker family, when they talk about Mr. Heybourne and his wife over that tea before Colonel Lennox arrived, if you remember that. Thanks to them, Charlotte's intrigued, okay, and now she's inside this house. She's thinking, she can get more answers, especially to Mr. Whitley, but Mr. Whitley doesn't want to talk about it out of respect for the children and Mr. Heybourne.
I have heard tell of a midwife of Melmead, a Mrs. Potter. She helps women who have struggled, as I believe you might be struggling.
Esther is starting to believe that God hates her. Esther is having that spiritual perspective on what her life is right now. And she's like, does God hate me? He doesn't love me. He doesn't want me to be happy. He doesn't want me to be a mom. And a lot of people go through that in real life, outside of the show, and I guess I'm very open about this. I know this can be tough for some people, but I think it's okay to talk about. So what Esther is going through, I'm pretty sure it relates to at least one person in real life, to one fan, and she's like, I'm out of hope, I don't have many chances, this doctor that she saw in episode 1 didn't give her much hope. And now she went to church because she needed to find that peaceful place to think and process what's going on in her life. And it's the place of where she can pray to God if she believes in that and beg him to give her a baby. And then she stumbled upon Mr. and Miss Hankins on her way out. And Miss Hankins approached her outside of church in this scene. And Esther oh my goodness, she knows. And, how does she know? She never told Miss Hankins about her first daughter that died in birth. So it's a sign of hope, I guess what I'm trying to say at the end of all of this. It's a sign of hope, a sign of second chance. hopefully Esther gives this midwife a chance and go to her place and find out more about what this midwife does for a woman. And also it's very thoughtful of Miss Hinken to talk to Esther in the scene and to let her know of this information that she didn't know firsthand, and now she knows. I think, like, if you see it from a spiritual, religious perspective, outside, like looking into the scene, it's kind of like a God sign, like, God giving Esther a sign, like, hey, like, you didn't go to church for nothing. It's meant to be, and Miss Hinken talked to her.